Okay, Shabbat Shalom. Sorry, I wasn't able to free up the space on my phone. So what is going to happen? I'm going to have to do a live stream of this chapter summary from this book. Because what I realized when I was filming earlier, I only had like 15 minutes or so on my phone. And the summary was going on really long. I didn't want to rush it. There's no point in rushing something if it's not going to be done well. I'd rather do it thoroughly and not have to worry about running out of space on my phone or running out of space or running out of time. I just want to be able to explain it in a way that it makes sense and I'm not rushing through things. So that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm doing it like this. So I'm just going to put on that there. And you do this. Okay. So essentially 3 days and 3 nights. That's the chapter we're on. 3 days and 3 nights. Chapter 25. So in this chapter, they're basically going through the chronology of the events surrounding the Pesach, the Passover, during the year that Yehoshua was crucified. So let's look at that. Yehoshua was crucified on the 14th. Let me try to, just want to see what it looks like on the screen there. You can see. It's a little tricky to do it like this, but okay. Do it that way. So essentially, he was crucified on the 14th. That's the Wednesday of the first month at the end of the preparation day for Passover. That would be the preparation day. This is the preparation day, the day of preparation for the Passover. The day, okay, I'm going to just go through it in a orderly fashion. Okay, so Yehoshua said the one sign that would prove that he is the Mashiach that was prophesied of old is the sign of the prophet Jonah. As Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the huge fish, so the Son of Man shall be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. This sign was the only sign that he gave that unequivocally indicated that he was the true Messiah. So it was the only sign that he gave to them, that he would be in the grave for 3 days and 3 nights. So he was killed and crucified on the 14th of Abib, and then he ascended from the grave afterwards 3 days and 3 nights later, just as Jonah came out of the fish 3 days and 3 nights later. So in other words, many people assume this to be Good Friday, over there, Friday, to Easter Sunday. How do they explain that? Okay, let's count right now. Let's count Friday as one day. Not because it was the end of the day, but let's just count it. Anyway, that's one. It's one day. Okay? Friday daytime. And then Friday night is night one. Day one, night one. Okay? And next we go to Saturday. This is going by the calendar of the world. Daytime, right? Because the day starts with the day, with the daylight, according to the worldly system. That's day 2. Night 2. Sunday. Let's go to Sunday. Sunday day. Day 3. And night 3. But when did he rise? When did he rise? It says in the traditions of the world, Easter Sunday. He rose on Easter Sunday in the morning. In the morning. So that X out that night. So it's only 2 nights. And maybe 3 days if we're kind of iffy about that, because he technically rose during the morning. So that's kind of not really a full day. It's more like 2 days, sorry, 2 nights, 2 days and a half. You don't even have three of any of those, if you're really being honest. So if you examine the 3 nights and 3 days and 3 nights of when he actually died, like from the scriptural account, actually this isn't the scripture, but I mean, when you take your scriptures, you will see whether what he was saying was true. But before we get into that, I'm going to explain just how different the way of telling time is to determine when a day starts according to the scriptures. So we see in Genesis chapter 1, the creation week, Elohim says the evening and the morning were the first day. And it goes on, day 1 to day 7, the evening and the morning were the first day. In Leviticus 23, verse 32, is referring to the Day of Atonement. It says here in the latter half of the verse, in the the 9th day of the month, that being the 7th month, at evening, from evening to evening, you shall keep your Shabbat, the high Sabbath. This is biblical proof. It's proof that the day begins at sunset. Otherwise, you would say from morning to morning. No, he says from evening until evening. That's the beginning of the 9th day, or the day, whatever day you're talking about. So Shabbat, the 7th-day Shabbat begins at sunset, and not when 3 stars can be seen, or in accordance with other folklore traditions. There's many traditions out there, but technically it's sunset to sunset. But how do you determine sunset? There's so many different definitions of sunset. So it's not going into that. It's just my own commentary. Personally, I've been starting to do Shabbat an hour before sunset, just to make certain, and then end it an hour after sunset. Like when you Google sunset, what time is sunset, then it'll give you like a certain time. And then I usually go an hour before and an hour after, just to be certain and kind of, guard that commandment. Just remember the Sabbath and keep it holy, guard it, keep it holy. So that's the way I do that. I only started that maybe the last few months, and I've been doing this walk for 20 years. So I mean, go figure. You learn a lot. You never really know everything. So much. The more you know, the more you realize that you don't know. So back to the chapter summary. So Yeshua said there are 12 hours in a day, in any given day. So if there are 12 hours in a day, then the implication is there are also 12 hours that make up a night, or the evening. So the 3 days in question would consist of 3 12-hour periods of daylight and nighttime, respectively. I just want to mention, in case something pops up there, it's because I have a virus. You might see something pop up on my screen. That's a virus. My computer has a virus. It's not some, I don't know. Anyway, I don't know if anyone else has those, but I've got a virus on my computer. So that might pop up, and it's going to be embarrassing, but just know that the virus is doing that. Okay. Caveat there, a little disclaimer. I feel like it's going to happen. For some reason, I have an itching feeling. So let's look at the chain of events based on the account in the New Testament, the scriptures here, in the proper chronological order. Okay, so Yehoshua had eaten the Last Supper and washed the feet of his disciples after sunset. So towards the end of this day, which would be the 13th, would be the end of the 13th and beginning of the 14th. Just ignore the pagan names. This is day 13, okay? 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. At the beginning of the or not the beginning, the end of the 13th, they had their the Last Supper, and after sunset, so sunset was ready. The Last Supper is right there, right in between. They had that Last Supper, and they made their way to the Mount of Olives. So he prayed. Yahushua prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane, and then he was arrested there, and he was brought before Annas and Caiaphas, the high priests, while it was yet dark. Okay, so he was arrested on this night of the 14th, which is the beginning of the 14th, because as I said, in the Bible, according to the timing of Elohim, the day starts in the evening. So that is the 14th, technically. So he was arrested during that time frame of the 14th. And while it was dark, it was still dark, they also sent him to Pontius Pilate to be questioned. I believe it was questioned, but they sent him to him. So they did not go into the praetorium, that they should not be defiled. This is John 18:28, and that they might eat the Passover. So as a matter of principle, they would not enter into the praetorium, okay, to not defile themselves before Passover, which starts at the end of the 14th day, which is right about there. This is the 14th day of Abib, Nisan. Abib, I prefer Abib, Aviv. So it says here, Mark 15, 24, 25, when they crucified him, they cast lots for his garments, and it was the third hour that they crucified him. The third hour, if you go by biblical time, the first hour is 6 a.m. 6 a.m. is the first hour of the day. That's when the sun is just rising, or it's about to rise, about 6 a.m. That's the first hour. So the third hour plus 3 would be 9 a.m. So 9 a.m. is when they crucified him. Right there. That would be the 14th. This is the 14th evening and the 14th day. So he was crucified during this period of time. And then Pilate heard, rewind a bit. Third hour occurred at 9 a.m., just like I said. Yeshua was delivered up to Annas and Caiaphas. He was brought before Pilate, Pontius Pilate, and then Agrippa, and then back to Pilate. This all took place during the night and the very early morning hours, finally at 9 a.m. So all of that, arresting and being brought before the various people I mentioned, was all during this night. It was a long day when you really think about it, because they had their supper. If you think about it, like, put yourself in his shoes, right? They had their last supper after the sunset of the 13th, so he's awake, right? And he's been awake this whole time. But it doesn't say that Yeshua was given a nap or they let him sleep. He pulled an all-nighter from the 13th into this night, and then the sun went up and he was still awake and being sent to his death. So not only was that painful, it's a strain on your body physically. Have you ever pulled an all-nighter? You know what that's like. You feel like a zombie. Like, I don't really think about that until now. I just thought of that now. Yeah, the 3 days in question. Okay, where am I now? Lost. Okay. Okay, here I am. Found it. So at 9 a.m. he was nailed to the tree. Right here, day 14. The day part of the 14th day. Daylight portion. Okay, and it says here in Luke 23, verse 44, it was about the 6th hour, and there was a darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour. Wow, so the 6th hour, going by what I said earlier, the first hour is 6 a.m., so the sixth hour would be 12 p.m., which is noontime. Is it normal for there to be darkness at 12 p.m.? No, that is a divine, uh, what's the word? Intervention. Similarly, this isn't in the book, I'm just talking from my thoughts, but similarly, Yehoshua ben Nun, he stopped the sun in the sky, and at that time, that day went on for a extended period of time, and it was probably normally would be dark, and the moon would be up, and the stars would be shining, but it was still daytime. The sun was still there. That was divine intervention, and so was this, where the darkness happened, but it had nothing to do with the celestial bodies. It was more the darkness was over all the earth. So the sun was darkened. That's how it happened. The sun was, there was a setting, however he does it, he darkened the sun. That was the sixth hour, 12 p.m. And then the ninth hour, which would be 3 p.m., is when he was, where is it? What does it say here? Where's the ninth hour reference? Okay, it doesn't say. But ninth hour is 3 p.m. Okay. So when Yehoshua died, the priest asked to have everyone's legs broken in order that those being crucified might die faster, so that they could be taken down from the tree where they were hung on before the high holy day of Pesach, which, or I should say, to be more technically correct, is the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which began on the 15th day. It's a high Sabbath. It's a holy day. That's why the priest said, break their legs. We don't want to break this law of doing work at that time. So and it says there in John 19, verse 31, they begged Pilate, the Jews begged him to break their legs so that they would take them away, so that the body should not remain on the cross on the Shabbat, for that Shabbat was a high Shabbat. It was a special Shabbat. It's not a weekly Shabbat, it's a Moedim. But Yehoshua was already dead, so they did not break his legs. And these things happened that the scripture should be fulfilled that says, not a bone of him will be broken. Okay, so Yehoshua died on the tree about 3 p.m. Right there. That's still the 14th day, mind you, which was the ninth hour. The ninth hour of this day, the 14th, would be 3 p.m. And then Joseph of Arimathea had to cross over the Kidron and go back to the Praetorium to ask Pilate for the body of Yeshua. He then had to come back with the centurion to make sure, with the centurion, by this time it was the 10th hour. The 10th hour would be, that would be 4 p.m. So 2 hours remaining till sunset. They would need to remove the body and place it in the tomb. They did this just before sunset as the high holy day was about to begin. And what I said in the previous recording that did not complete because I ran out of space is that there is a debate that still goes on up to this day as to when is the Passover. Is it the 14th or the 15th? Well, we can settle that matter right now, live on the stream. It's been an issue of contention for centuries, really. And the only way to prove it is to go to the scriptures and see what it says. I would get my scriptures, the actual hard copy, but it's actually underneath the laptop, which is filming right now. So I cannot do that. I have to wait for this to load. But essentially, we're going to be looking at Leviticus. That's always the go-to book. To prove when are the holy days. If you lost track and you don't know when is this day going to be again, the Yom Teruah or Feast of Trumpets, when is that? And you look up in Leviticus 23 and it shows you explicitly and very specifically. So let's look here. It says here, Leviticus 23, verse 5. This is the Brenton Septuagint. In the first month, on the 14th day. So it's on the 14th day of the month. When did Yeshua die? The 14th day of the month. And when did he die? On the 14th? And it says here, right here in Leviticus 23, between the evening times. Between the evening times. Evening. Here, that's when he died. When he's supposed to sacrifice the Passover? Right here, during this period of time. If you want to be very, very, very specific, ultra specific, Yeshua was crucified at 9 a.m. So I guess if you had a physical lamb, we don't do that today. We don't have a temple or a Levitical priesthood, but they would then get the lamb around that time, 9 a.m., to fulfill that, because Yeshua fulfilled the meaning of the holy days. He fulfilled the purpose of what they foreshadowed. So he was arrested at night. I guess maybe you'd select the lamb at that point, I would suppose, and then you would prepare the sacrifice however you prepare it. There's a lot of procedures to do that in the right way at 9 a.m. And then I think I said something earlier about 12 p.m. What did I say? What did it say here? Regarding 12 p.m. Yeah, so between 12 p.m. to 3 p.m., that's when, all right, hold on, I'm kind of lost here. I'm trying to see what happened at 12 p.m. Because 12 p.m. would be, 12 p.m. would be the 6th hour, right? See, I'm not so clear as to what happened on the 6th hour. That's something I am trying to find. Where is it here? See, that's why I'm not doing it on my phone, because I would obviously run out of space a long time ago. Yeah, 6th hour is when the darkness happened. And he cried with a loud voice, saying, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. That's from the Masoretic, or not Masoretic, I guess the normal translation, not the Westcott and Hort, but the other translations. But anyhow, the point is, the 6th hour is when he committed his spirit. He said, I commit my spirit, and then he breathed out the spirit. So that was the 6th hour would be 12 p.m. Okay, but it says here he dies approximately 3 p.m. How does that make sense? Oh, okay, it makes sense because the 6th hour is when darkness happened. All right, and then he died. So the darkness was at 12 p.m. and then he dies. So between 12 to 3, that's where it really intensified. And he culminated in his death at 3 p.m. So if you're going to be very specific, like I was saying, ultra technical and ultra specific and down to the finest detail, you would then prepare your lamb to be sacrificed around 9 a.m. And then 12 p.m., I guess that's when you're starting to kill it. 3 p.m. or 3 p.m. actually the lamb would be sacrificed, I suppose, because as he died at 3 p.m. I mean, you're not going to torture your lamb, obviously. That's not the way you do it. But he died at 3 p.m. So if you're going to fulfill that, the timeline of events, the lamb, if we historically look back at how ancient Israel would have kept Passover, they would have killed the lamb at 3 p.m. on the 14th day. So this is the 14th night, right? The 14th evening. So in the second half of the 14th, which is daytime at 3 p.m., that's when they would kill the lamb. And then that's leading into the night of the Passover right there, the 15th. Like the actual, does it make sense? Sounds like I'm contradicting myself, doesn't it? But that's how it would go. The lamb would be sacrificed, and then that's where the death angel passed over their houses. It was a night to be much observed, and it was also a holy day. I think that's just logic. I don't know if that's from contradicting scripture. Please, let me know if I am. So continuing on, where am I now? I'm on page 166. Okay. Okay, right. So he died at 3 p.m., which was the ninth hour, and then Joseph of Arimathea had to cross over the Kidron back to Praetorium to ask Pilate for the body of Yeshua, and he came right, and they did this all before sunset, as the 15th was about to begin, which is a holy day. So look at this next verse in Luke 23, 53, 55. And that day was the preparation day. Excuse me. And that day was the preparation, verse 54. And the Shabbat drew on, and also women were following, were accompanying. Okay, so, and then Luke 23:56 says, they returned and they prepared spices and ointment, and they rested on the Shabbat according to the commandment. This Shabbat, not that one. This Shabbat. I mean, that's not even the Shabbat. This is the high Shabbat. So verse 53 tells us it is still the 14th when he was killed, and they put him in the tomb. It was the preparation day for this high Sabbath. So it was still this time towards the end where they were preparing the spices and ointment. This could not be done during this time. It could not infringe there, because the weekly Sabbath, hold on. But if it was done on Friday, which would be a preparation day for the weekly Sabbath, this could not be done the high holy day, but it was done on Friday, which was also the preparation day. Right there. Which they rested on. Notice it says they returned after this day. So they were preparing. Actually, they weren't preparing. It was actually here, wasn't it? So I got that wrong. Please pardon me for that. I made a mistake. So he died and he was placed in the tomb at that point. They couldn't do it during that time, so they came back. They prepared spices and they returned after this Shabbat right here, before the weekly Shabbat. So that is talking about the weekly Shabbat. So my mistake there. That day was the preparation day, meaning right there. The end of this, the end of that. It's confusing because of that, but if not the names, but if you just go by 14, 15, 16, right? 14 is the 4th. 15 would be the 5th day. This would be the 6th day. So that's the preparation day. From Thursday, this is actually that would be Thursday. It's off. Whoever created that, it was totally off. So this account of the first of the Sabbath is the first day of the Feast of Weeks. Okay. That's Luke 24, verse 1. It says, on the first of the Sabbath, so while it was still very early, they came to the tomb, bringing the spices which they prepared. That would be the first Sabbath of the Feast of Weeks, when they began counting the Omer. Wait, is that right? How do you calculate that? So it'd be okay, so you count 7 Sabbaths. I was going to say you count the 7 Sabbaths after the wave sheaf. You shall number to yourselves from the day after the Sabbath, from the day on the which you offer the sheaf, 7 full weeks. So after that, you would count, after this day, you would count the 7 Sabbaths. That's actually not included. I think that was a mistake on the author's part here. Later that same day, Yeshua appeared to them and encouraged his disciples not to touch him, because he had already been presented at that point in time. But at first, Mary could not touch him during this portion of time. But then here he told his disciples to examine the holes in his hands and feet, because he had not been presented yet to his Father as the wave sheaf. So he went up and he came back. A lot of people don't understand that. It's such a important thing to grasp. So that is the complete chronology of the events of his crucifixion and resurrection. So he was arrested. Let's go over it one more time. There's only 2 pages left. Okay, so let's go over it one more time just for clarification's sake, for clarity's sake. He was arrested on, ignore these, this is the 14th day. Okay? He was arrested on the 14th day, evening of the 14th. I won't say day, I'll just say the 14th, the evening. That's, sorry, it wasn't dead yet. Why am I counting? He was arrested then. And this would be technically Tuesday, so this has to be shifted. That was Tuesday evening, the 14th. He was then tried and hung on the tree at 9 a.m. on Wednesday. See, this needs to be shifted. That needs to be shifted. And so this was still the 14th. At 3 p.m., he died. He died roughly 5-6 p.m. just before the sunset. 3 p.m. he died, and then roughly 5 or 6 p.m. just before sunset, he was buried. At 5 or 6, he was buried, not died. He died already at 3 p.m. All this occurred on this day, the 14th day. The 14th day of the first month, from sunset Tuesday evening. Oh, I hope I'm not blocking the camera. From sunset Tuesday evening, and then until sunset Wednesday. So Wednesday evening, after sunset, right here, was the start of the High Holy Day, the first day of unleavened bread, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. It was the 15th. It was the 15th of the first month. Thursday day was also the same feast day. So this in turn was the first night and first day of the counting of 3 days and 3 nights. Because he died on this day, remember? So this is night 1 and day 2. Thursday night and Friday day was the weekly preparation day for the Shabbat, the weekly Shabbat. So this is now the 16th day of the first month, and this is the second night and second day that Yehoshua was in the heart of the earth. Friday night and Saturday day was the weekly Shabbat and would count as the third night and the third day. See, those are complete. Not like what they're doing in the mainstream where it's only 2 and 2.5 at the most. So this in turn was the 17th day and the first of the first month. So that would be the 17th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th day of the first month. When the women came back on the first day of the week, Sunday, it was still dark. It was still early in the morning, and they wanted to apply the ointments. But Yehoshua was already gone because he rose at this portion of the 17th day. They arrived here. He would have risen from the tomb at the end of Shabbat, right at the end of the weekly Shabbat, because you're not supposed to work. He rose right after the rest day. Lost my place. Okay. Rose from the tomb at the end of Shabbat, and just as the first day of the week was about to begin at sunset, that's when he rose. He rose on the first day. Oh, sorry. I just contradicted myself. I meant to say he rose at the end of Shabbat. So that could be the seventh day. Yeah, that's correct. No, wait, is that correct? That's more like the first day. Because 1, 2, and 3, and then he rose right there. So he actually rose on the first day of the week. He returned to the earth the same day. Okay, it was at 9 a.m., the time of the morning sacrifice. Okay, the first day of the week is Saturday night and Sunday day. Saturday night and Sunday day. That's the first day of the week. And that was the 18th of the first month. So at 9 a.m. of this day, that's the time of the morning sacrifice traditionally in scripture, Yehoshua ascended to heaven on that day as the wave sheaf offering, as per Leviticus 23, is supposed to do that the more after the Sabbath. Once he presented himself, and those he brought with him from the grave were resurrected, he returned to the earth the same day, on the first day of the week, where he met up with his disciples. So now we've established Wednesday, the 14th of Aviv, as the day he was crucified, Yehoshua. We've given you the appropriate scriptures, and you can find that in this book if you purchase it. To prove our position, we can easily see, or plainly see, how Good Friday and Easter Sunday are not the days he was killed or rose from the grave on. Actually, he definitely did not die Friday, but he could have rose on Sunday, actually, because 3 days and 3 nights. Oh, wait. 3 days and 3 nights? Technically, he could rise on Sunday morning or Saturday, like towards Saturday, between the time of Saturday or the end of Shabbat, which is Saturday night. Saturday night. Yeah, he actually wrote Saturday night, so it's not Sunday. Yeah, cancel what I said there. Now everyone's just confused as to what I'm saying. No, but he rose Saturday night. That's when he rose, right after sunset of Saturday, after the Shabbat. So we're going to take a look at two additional teachings that reinforce and prove Wednesday is the 14th of the month of Aviv. On this basis, we will show you how the year Yeshua was killed, it began with a crescent moon. That's going to be the next thing to show you in chapter 26, meaning the moon ushers in the new month. We're going to go over these teachings to establish the fact that any and every given month is to always begin with a crescent moon sighting. Once we prove that, we will know the seventh month began with the crescent moon sighting, the Yom Teruah. And it too, it is the seventh month that proves the Feast of Shouting is on the first day of the seventh month. Oh, the crescent moon sighting is proof of the Feast of Shouting. Doesn't make sense to me, that sentence, but anyway. Basically, the Yom Teruah can only be declared by a sighted moon. That's basically what the point is. And because you need to sight the moon, which can occur on one of 2 days, then that's where you get the expression that no man can know the day or the hour. So this truism, I'm just reading verbatim now, it is the clue that is given to us regarding when the Mashiach will return on the Feast of Trumpets. That's one of the biggest things probably in human history, and not that many people are interested in it. But why is that? Why aren't people interested in it? Because how can that scripture be fulfilled where it says that it will take people like a thief in the night? How will it surprise people if everyone is interested in it? That everyone will be on the ball and understanding this truth that it's going to be on Yom Teruah, and not just the Hallel to Yom Teruah, based on a calculated calendar, but based on the sighted moon, which how many people are keeping? I'd say 0.0001%, like a very, very small fraction of the world's population understands it this way, but keeps it that way. Is a bigger thing altogether. It's another thing altogether. This is the clue as to when he will return. Yom Teruah, the Feast of Trumpets, also teaches us that on this feast day, on this day, Yom Teruah, is also the day when he was born, when he came the first time. And he is to return that very same day. Wow, this is almost an hour. Do you see what I mean? I couldn't do this in a 10-minute video as I normally do, 15 minutes or less. This is such a heavy topic. It is something that it really deserves a thorough explanation. It deserves to be treated with a lot of care. You can't just rush and try to explain it in 10 minutes. It's such a topic of debate, not only the 3 days and 3 nights, but when is the Passover? When is it really supposed to be based on the scriptures, not based on somebody's opinion or based on traditions of people, no matter how many hundreds of years they've been doing it that way. What does God say? What does Elohim say? Because it doesn't matter what we think or what we say. It matters what he says, what he thinks, what he commands us to do. If we come up with our own ideas, it's no longer his Torah anymore. It's our own traditions, it's our own opinions, and whatever we decide, and it's against what he said, it's automatically wrong. That's just the truth. Okay, so next up is, well, we're going to see what happens in this chapter. I'm kind of intrigued as to how this ties in with this topic, but it's called The Road to Emmaus, chapter 26. That'll be the next one. And I don't think I'll do that tonight. I'll probably do it tomorrow, just because it is quite late where I am. So I thank you all for watching, and those who will watch in the future. May Yah bless and protect you. And Shabbat Shalom, or Shalom if it's just a regular day. Thank you. I hope this was helpful and that you gained some understanding. But please, once again, don't just take my word for it or just whatever's in this book. Please prove it to yourself. Look in your own Bibles and study, preferably the Septuagint, because that is more closer to the original scriptures. It's a literal translation of the Hebrew into Greek, whereas the Masoretic has been doctored and has taken a lot of proofs that Yehoshua was the Mashiach. They ripped it out, they completely mangled it, and completely edited it and tried to cover up the proofs that he was Mashiach, although Isaiah 53 is a messianic prophecy, and it's still preserved there, but they banned it. It's forbidden to read that amongst the Jewish people, especially in the synagogue, especially when they're teaching. They don't go there. It's not a reading that is done as part of the weekly portions. When they do the Torah portion, there's also a portion that is not part of the Torah. They will not go there. I don't think so, unless you can prove me wrong. So anyhow, yeah, please prove it to yourself. That's very important. We're admonished to do that in scriptures, prove all things, and pray about it. And when you seek him with all your heart, you will find him. He will give you understanding the more that you obey him. Because if we just learn but we don't follow what the book is saying, not this book, but the Torah, the Tanakh, if we don't follow those teachings, then we're at a disadvantage, because it's just head knowledge. It's like you know how to drive a car by reading a driver's instruction book, but unless you're on the road and you get that experience and you follow the rules of the road, you won't benefit from it. You're just doing according to what you feel and what you think, but that's not the way it should be. So again, thank you again, and Shabbat Shalom. Till next time, chapter 26. Stay tuned. I'll try to get that out tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then Sunday.